I'm Sheikha. I'm one of the GDG Kuwait organizers. Oh wait, I forgot to record. I did record. Okay, it is recording. Hi. Yes, so I'm Sheikha, one of the GDG Kuwait organizers. I would like to welcome you all and thank you for registering in this session. So this session is provided by GDG Kuwait as a part of IWD, which is International Women Day of 2021, and GDG Kuwait chapter events. So GDG Kuwait is a group of Google developers with a different backgrounds, but have same interest in technology development. And so the main goal of our GDG Kuwait group is to share tech knowledge and skills with those who seek such knowledge for free. And by that, we're contributing to develop a good tech platform in Kuwait and around the world through our participation in IWD 2021 Kuwait events. And GDG Kuwait has done many workshops and talks, such as Django workshop for web development, Android and iOS workshops, cybersecurity, Google Cloud, and tech hackathons, and many contributions to share good knowledge that you may find in our official website that I will be sharing in the chat. So today, GDG Kuwait is presenting to you building an arcade game using Python workshop, presented firstly by Mariam Mahdi. She is an information technology grad student who is passionate about artificial intelligence and Python. She is part of our GDG Kuwait chapters as an organizer, and this session she is going to demonstrate Python language basics for beginners. And then we have engineering Mahdi AlFaraj, who is mechanical engineering graduate from the American University of the Middle East, and GDG Kuwait chapter organizer, who is a self-taught programmer, mainly working with Python, and he is going to explain how to use Python programming language to develop an arcade game. And yeah, just before we begin, a quick note. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the in the Q&A section part. So, and this session is recorded. So after it is done, like, you can find this recorded session in our YouTube channel. And also at the end of the session, I will give out a link, a form, so you can have your certificate attendance for today. And yes, please, let's welcome Mariam.
Hello, everyone. I hope you will have a great learning journey in this session. So let's see my screen. Okay. Is my screen showing? Can you see my screen now?
No.
No.
Okay, there's a problem. Wait a minute. Okay, what about now?
Yes, it is showing.
Good, okay. So, yeah, today we're going to build an arcade game together, but first we need to learn Python. So Python is an open source language. What we mean by open source, it is for free for everyone to use to develop anything they want. So before we start learning actually Python, we need to download Python and Pycharm. So to do this, okay. Sorry, to do this, let me share with you the Python links. Okay, in the chat. So please, on the link I've shared with you. Okay. You will see a window that looks like this. Actually, this website will automatically know your operating system if you're a Windows or a Mac user. So only click on the yellow button here, download with Python. Okay, for Mac users, after the file is downloaded, click on the file, then just click continue, then click agree on the terms, enter your password, then click install. After that, for Windows users, find the file that you've installed, click install now, and please make sure to check this checkbox that add Python 3.9 toolbit to path. Then check all the boxes in the second when you click install. Check all the boxes, then click next. After that, check the first 4 boxes, or if they are already checked, just click install. So are we on the same page? If yes, click type yes, please, in the chat. Okay, good. If everyone downloaded the Python, it is installed already, please just type yes. So I will know that we are all on the same page. Good. Good, okay. Okay then, let's start installing Pycharm. Pycharm is an editor used for Python language, so the computer can actually translate the code you will enter to the language of the computers, which is binary language, which is zeros and ones. We used to see them in the movies. Okay, good. Click on the link I've provided now and start downloading Pycharm. You will see something like this. Click download. You will see 2 versions. Click on community and click download. Before that, choose your choose your operating system. If you're a Windows or a Mac OS or Linux, then choose the version the community version and download it. Users, after downloading, click on the Pycharm folder. Then you will drag it to applications. After that, you will do this window will appear. Okay, just click open. For Windows users, click on the file, click next, then use checkbox 64-bit launcher, then click next, then click next again, then install. Okay. For Windows users, also click finish. After that, you will have like the term and policy. Just click accept, then click do not import settings, click OK, then click don't send. Okay. Now for both of you, Mac users and Windows, you will see a window just like this one. Choose if you're like if you used Pycharm before or not. Then if you're Dracula just like me, use the Dracula theme, or if you like the light background, use the lights. Okay, then just click next, next, then you just create project. Okay, good. I just want to see that we are all on the same page. If yes, please print. in the chat. Me too. So if we are all on the same page, we've downloaded Python and Pycharm, please type yes in the chat so I would know that we are all on the same page to start learning Python. Sure, take your time. We'll start roughly on 47, so 7:47 p.m. So I'll give you 2 or 1 minute. So are we ready yet? Okay. Everyone is cool. Everything is setting up, or we're having issues. If anyone have any issue, please don't hesitate to write it in the chat. Our TAs will help. I'm waiting for others to type yes that they've installed both Python and Pycharm, so we can start. Okay, good. Good. Okay. Okay. Good. If anyone has any issue, please type it in the chat section so our TAs can help you. Otherwise, we will start. Yalla, let's start. So, Python basics. In today's workshop, I will just illustrate the basics that we're going to use to develop the arcade game. Only those basics that we're going to use. The others, inshallah, in the future, we're going to have a Python workshop, hands-on workshop, that everyone's gonna benefit from it, inshallah. In this section, we will learn about basic programming terminologies, variables, strings, numbers, print function, writing comments, if-else statement, loop, range function, modules and modules methods, object-oriented programming, functions as parameters, global and local variables. So, terminologies. The code or source code is a sequence of instructions in a program for those who are beginners now, starting in Python. There is something called syntax. Syntax is basically the code we are writing. As simple as that. The code, the structure of the code, how we're gonna write it, the indentation of the code is the syntax. Okay, the output is whenever we write a code and we run the code, we will have an output from the editor, okay, after running the code. console is where we actually the textbooks onto which output is printed. So the output will appear in the console. Okay, variables. This is how we write the variables. A variable equal then the expression. We can write it as age equal 29, or like, let's say Mariam equal student. Okay. The rules for writing a variable, we should not write a variable name like age. We should not, instead of writing age, write false or none or true, and as, import, pass, non-local, because these are Python keywords. Python keywords means that Python language will understand this, that these keywords are for like functions, for doing things, so it will translate it as a variable name. Okay. Okay, variable name cannot contain spaces, so if you have complex variable name, you will have underscore. Okay, just like age underscore student, let's say. Okay, then the first character must be a letter or underscore. So you cannot use a number first. So for example, you cannot say 2 and the number 2 then age. No, you should say underscore age or age underscore 2 or age 2. Okay. After the first character may use letters, digits, as I said. Variable names are case sensitive. So when you write age as a small letter, keep writing it in the same way for during like all the programs. Sorry. So you should always, if you want to refer to this variable age, write age small letters in small letters. Okay, variable name should reflect its use, so you can remember the variable while programming, because in a long program, you should remember which is which. So when you write a variable name that is not related to the function it does, forgot what is it? Strings. So here, as we said before, the variable name can be separated by underscores, so to have like complex variable name. Here in the string, to define a string in Python, we use single or double. That way, okay. But if we have like, let's say, the variable has like, this is a single quotation, but the single quotation words are quoted in double quotes. So we use single quote for the whole text, the whole string. But if we have single quote inside the text, we use double quotes. Okay? In numbers, Python has 2 types of numbers. There is more, but mainly 2 types, which is the integer and the float. The difference between them is the integer is a whole number. Float has decimals. Okay, and we can use like the basic operations with numbers, like for addition, for subtraction, multiplication, division, exponents, and parentheses. Such like this example. This is the print function. So we will type here 3 plus 4, and it will give us 7. Here we're using integers because they are whole numbers. And in the second line, we're using floats, and we're using subtraction, which will give us minus 7.9. Here we're using print 2 asterisk asterisk 2, it will give us 4. Okay, and etc. And we can use like multiple operations. Okay, as here we have a variable called result, that is 2 plus 3 multiplied by 4. When we print result, we will have 14. Also here we can use brackets to have another result. Another example of numbers, we have the school equation, I call it, 2 to the power, a to the power 2 plus b to the power 3 multiplied by c. Here we should, in the code, we should first define the variables. So we will say a equal to 5, b equal to 4, let's say, and c equal to 8. Then we will define a fourth variable called results that will be equal to multiplied by 2, a to the power 2. 2 asterisks in Python means to the power. Okay. Plus b 2 asterisk means to the power 3, then multiplied by c, and when we use the print function, it will give us the results. When you are writing a long program, you need to remind yourself of each section you're writing inside this program using comments. Comments, sorry. Okay, so comments, and if we want to write a comment, let me show you. Okay. Okay. So to write a comment, we use the hashtag symbol and write our comment. This comment will not be printed, so it will not be an outcome. When we run the program, there will be nothing to like come as an output. Okay. But if we use the print function like this, and we always write the print function with a small letter P, okay, then we use brackets, then the quotations if we are writing a string. If we are writing a number without quotations, we just write the number. Okay, then it will give us an output like this. Okay, but if we want to write a comment, we use always the hashtag symbol. Now I will explain something we call in Python the if statement. If statement help us to make decisions in our program. Okay, so it executes a group of statements only if a certain condition is true. Otherwise, the statements are skipped. So the syntax, as we said before, the terminology syntax is this. If we write the condition, then we will have our statements that will be executed. Okay, so the first line of the if clause includes the if word, then a condition. A condition can be like if x like equals to 5, print like, let's say x is equal to 5. Okay, so the condition can be true or false. X cannot be like equals to 5, maybe it's 6. So in this case it's false, and if equals to 5, it will be true. Okay, when if a statement executes, the condition is tested. So if it is true, the block statement, this you see here the statement, this is called the block, okay, of statements are executed if the if statement is true and it fulfills the condition. Otherwise, if the if statement is false, it does not condition, so x does not equal to 5, or is not, sorry, equal to 5, okay, the statement block will be skipped, because Python, when you execute like a number of lines of code, it will execute line by line. It will not like go from line 1 to line 4. I will illustrate it now. Just give me a minute. So here we have like x, let's say, equal to 5, okay? And we want to print the if statement. So if x is equal to 6, you see here the editor will take us give us an indentation to write the statement. So print brackets, double quotes or single quotes, x is equal to 6. Okay, let's run this program. Sorry. Okay. Here it says that we're having an error. I don't know why. We should use a double equal sign. I forgot that. Okay. Let's see. Here, because of this condition was fulfilled, we have in the terminal, on the console, sorry, we will have the text, the statement text will be typed. So x is equal to 5. Or otherwise, if we use like x equal 6, we use double equals because this is how we are writing the condition. If it's not equal, so we will use this symbol to just like let the or the computer know that we don't want that x should not be equal to 6. Okay, so in this case, it will be true also because x does not equal 6, x equals 5. Okay, let's say equal. Let's see if the statement will be executed. See here, it's not executed. There is something else if we want to, like, if just in case if the if statement is false and we want to know that it is false, we write something called else. Okay, print, let's say x does not equal 5. Okay, let's execute this one. Sorry, I forgot. Okay, here because we have x equals to 5 as a variable, okay, we wrote the if statement that x equal to 6. If this condition that x equals to 6, please print x equals to 6. Okay. Else, if the condition was not like fulfilled, you can print for me that x does not equal 5. So when we execute it, it will say that x does not equal to 5. Okay, because it is actually, sorry, equals to 6. It will say that x does not equal to 6 because our x is equals to 5 here in the variable. Are we on the same page? I'm like explaining as simple as I can. Okay, let's move for the PowerPoint again. Is it showing? Yes. Okay. So as I said, if we want to write the condition, we can write equal equal. So the variable equals like a value, as we explained, or this symbol and equal, and it will automatically understand the program will all understand that it will not does not equal the value we entered, or less than, greater. The operators we all know. Okay. Okay. Another example of if statement. If the GPA, or sorry, we have a variable called GPA that is equal to 3.4. So the if statement says that if the GPA is greater than 2.0, please print your application is accepted. So in this case, if it's true, the program will execute what we are saying that your application is accepted. If it's not, it will skip the if statement and goes to the next block or the next line in programming of the program. Okay, so in this case, we're having like the GPA is greater than 2.0, so that's why we are having your application is accepted. This is the if else statement that I've explained before. So if the if statement is true, it will execute the if statement and skip the else statement and goes to the next line. If the if statement here, the first statement, is false, it will go to the else statement and execute it, just like what we did before in Pycharm, and then it will go to the next line. Here, another example of if else, just like the other example we've explained. So we have a GPA of 1.4. If a GPA is greater than 2.0, we will print, the program will print for us that welcome to the university. Else, the program will say that your application is denied. We have a line here that is not related to the if statement. So if we print this one, let me show you. Sorry. Okay, let me show you this code here. Okay. So let's run this. We're having an issue. Okay. Okay, so in here, in this program we write now, we have a GPA that's equal for 1.4. So what do you think? Does the program, is the program going to like give us an output of welcome to the university or application is denied? Because the GPA is greater than, because the GPA is lowered like than 2.0, so it will say that your application is denied. Okay, and good luck. Good luck statement here is printed because it's out of like the if statement. It's not indented under the if statement, so it does not have any issues with the if statement. Otherwise, we like say like the GPA is like 2.0, okay, and we use this print statement and we indent under the else statement as an else statement, and we run the program. Okay. wait, 1 0. Okay, you will have only welcome to the university, and the program will skip else and go to the next line, which is line 7. Let's say it is like print line 7. Okay, so it will go automatically. So it will say welcome to the university because the GPA is greater than 2.0, and then it will print line 7 because it will skip the else statement block, this block. Okay, just wanted to illustrate this. Okay, back to the PowerPoint. Okay, now we're having the loops. Loops are basically if we want to repeat the same code we've written multiple times. And there is 2 types of loops. We have something called for loop, and we have something called while loop. For loop execute a sequence of statements multiple times and abbreviate the code that manages the loop variable. Okay. While loop repeats a statement or a group of statements while a given condition is true. It tests the condition before executing the loop body. Okay, let's say that we are having a condition here. So if it's true, it will repeat itself multiple times. If it's false, it will. Okay. For loop, as we said, it repeats statements. This is the syntax, how we're going to, or the structure of the code for loop. And this is an example. So we will write for I is the variable in range 5. In range, it will give us like, if you want the range will start from 0, okay, and will stop before 5. So anything we will put between the brackets will be the stop point. Then we will write print then the output will be 0, 1, 2, 3, and it will stop at 4. Okay, it will not continue to 5. There are some rules for loops. When we indent a statement to be repeated with tabs or spaces, okay, there should be an indentation here, just like the if statement. The variable name gives a name to each value. So I will be like 0 and the 1 and the 2. This is what it means. And the group of values can be a range of integers specified with the range function. Okay, so these are the group of values. We can write like here 1 like comma 5. It will start from 1 to 4. It will stop at 5. It will stop at 5. Okay, we have something called nested loop, which is like using for loop that we've actually illustrated before with indentation. So we will say like 4 and range of like 5. Then we'll write 4 and range like 5 plus 1, just like this example. So here we have 4 and range 1, comma 5. And we have indentation here, so we can have a nested loop. Then we will write for B and range 1, A plus 1. Then we wanted to print A. This is the outcome. So first it will give us 1 here, okay? Then it will say 1 plus A, and it will give us 2. Same, it will give us 2 again from the first loop, okay? Then it will say 2 plus 1 equals 3, will give us 3. Okay, go back to the first loop and give us 3 again, and etc. Okay, and it will stop at 4, sorry. It will stop at 4. Here we have a while loop. It will execute a group of statements. This is the syntax of it. Okay, it's good for indefinite loop repeat a number of times. So here in the example, we have number equals to 1, while number is less than 200. Please print the number and make it number equal times 2. Okay, so first it will print 1, then it will 2, then it will like 1, then 1 is like 2 give us 2, 2 times 2 it will give us 4, 4 times 4 it will give us 8, etc. Till it will reach like 128, because 120 is the number that is greater than 200, so it will stop here. It will stop here. Okay, now we have something called in Python models and models methods. The model is the highest level structure of Python, and each file with the suffix py is a model. Each model has its own namespace. For import my model, okay, it will bring all elements model. It's like a library or something. Okay, think of it as that. But we should refer to my model first, so we can actually bring all the methods and all the like elements of the module. Okay, we will go through 3 modules for in order to develop the arcade game. We will use turtle module and random module and math module. Module is a pre-installed Python library that enables users to create pictures and shapes by providing them with a virtual canvas. Okay, it is very friendly to use. And there is the example. We will write import turtle. Okay, and it will help us to like easily generate the game window. So in the code of the syntax, we will write import. Okay, and it has these methods. So let's say we have variable names in the name bullets. So we will call first of all import turtle. Then we will say we will write this code. So it will be bullet equal turtle the module dot turtle the method. Okay. So the other line, bullet dot color. Dot color is the method that is used on the variable by the library. So the variable is going under the act of the turtle library. Okay, we're going to use multiple methods, so we can like build the window of the game. So we will use like the color, we'll change the shape and the speed of the screen if there is an object that is moving or something. Okay, we have another model that's called random module. It actually let's go for the example so you will like understand it well. First, we should write import random. Then in the example, we have a variable called x equal to random, which is the library or the module, then dot randant. Okay, randant, between the brackets, we have a point between minus 200 and 200. So the program will pick randomly a point between minus 200 and 200. Same goes to y. It will pick a random point between 100 and 250. Okay, this is the syntax. So we will write import random, random.random, and here it will return the float between 0 to 1 if we keep it like empty. But if we write like 1,6, it will return a number between 1 to 6. Let's say we want to return an integer, or we want to return a string, a text. So we will say John, Bob, and Mary. So we have a variable member that has 3 values saved and stored inside this variable. Okay, we will say that leader equals to random.choice member. So we want to choose the leader from the variable member, one of them, either John, Bob, or Mary. So it will give us a random mix of one of these as an output. The math module root between brackets. Root, it's a method of or math. Also, we have W is about the power is a library or a module, etc. Now, or understand now programming, object-oriented programming that we've discussed. It's everything in Python is an object. Okay, everything, classes, modules, everything. Okay, data type is a property of the object. So when we say like x equals to 5, it's the 5 is a property to the object and not of the variable. Okay, functions are objects. So they can be assigned to a variable. They can be returned from a function. Functions are treated like any other variable in Python, and we will see in a short time now. For example, we have here, we will define a function, which is the name of the function is bar, okay, and it has a parameter, which is x, and we wanted to return for us x multiplied by x. Okay, so here we are calling this function, and we assigned a parameter for x, which is equal to 3. So 3 multiplied by 3 is 9. It is this simple. Okay. Now we'll discuss something called global and local variables. I will illustrate it here in the example. Number 1, okay, equals to 0. This is a variable that is equals to 0. And we have another variable that is equals to 0, which is number 1 here, okay, equal to 0 plus 6. Then we have another variable that is equals to 9. These variables that are out
I'm sorry, I think my friend Mariam's connection has been lost. Just give us a second to figure this out.
Hello, sorry again, I had an internet. Okay, where did we stop, or where did the stream stop? Can anyone tell me in the chat, please? Okay, good. We didn't miss a lot. Global and okay. Let's go back then. Sorry for the technical issue. It's not in my hands. Okay. So, okay, global and local variables. The main difference between global and local is the global is outside the function, and the local is inside the function. Okay. Sometimes we can refer to global like a global variable outside the function, inside the function, by writing global and the name of the variable. Okay, so I will go through it again, the slide again. A global variable is a variable declared outside. This is a function. Def my function, the parameters a, b, and the whole thing indented under it, the block under the function is the function. The function, anything above is a global variable, and anything out of this box or out of this block is a global variable, just like this. Number 3 equals multiplies by number 2. These all are global variables because they are not indented under the function. Def my underscore function a comma b. Okay, anything inside, such as like c, a, b, anything from these variables and c are local variables. But we can take the value of a global variable and change the global variable number, okay, which is c here, c equals to 9. We can change it to 0 if we call something called global and we write the variable name. Okay? Okay. I hope you are all ready and you all understand now the main concept of Python. I will give the mic to my colleague Mahdi, and have a nice learning journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mariam. It was a very good introduction. Actually, you covered way more, and I think everyone has got a good background now, and we're all ready to start getting into programming the arcade game. So just to confirm that we all have our environments ready, we all have Pycharm and Python 3 installed and ready. If you could just confirm that in the chat, and if anyone had any problems, you can submit or direct message any of our staff. We will help you sort that out. Excellent. So I will start by sharing my screen. Okay. And we will see what we are trying to achieve. Okay. So this is an overview of the game that we are trying to recreate, the famous game Space Invaders. It's been around for more than 40 years. And I will just quickly go over the basic concepts that are expected of the program to execute in order to run the game. So the basic things we have, first of all, the player here in the bottom, and we have the enemies. They will be moving back and forth, and the objective of the game is to basically shoot the enemies in order to gain a higher score, or the top score. So the score will increase whenever we hit any of the target enemies. okay? And upon losing the game is when we have the enemies, they will be slowly shifting down toward the player. And when they reach all the way to the lowest part of the game, this is where we will have a game over. So this is just a basic idea of what we will be trying to program. As for the setup of the Pycharm, so initially we want to start a new project. I have named mine GDG. So you can just easily, from the file, click new project, and you can create a new project. Okay. And inside of the new project, this is where we will have our code files. So I have made a folder here. I called it Space Invaders Workshop, and I placed all of my files inside of it. So these files, I will share with you right now a link to the Google Drive folder where all of these files are saved, and you can download them. Yes, the game has been around for a very long time, and it has been a part of many of our childhood. So if all of you can open the Google Drive folder and download all the files inside, okay, which are basically 3 images and 1 code template. So in order to simplify things for you in the programming process, what I have put together is a template including comments to all the different commands that we will be inputting. So once you have all of these downloaded, just let me know so I can start explaining how we can bring them into Pycharm. Okay, great. So they probably downloaded on your downloads folder. So I have a copy of them right here on the desktop. Okay, so what we will do now is through Pycharm, once we have, of course, the project set up, okay, I will just make a new folder right here, make a directory, okay, and I will call it, for example, Space Invaders. Okay, so this is where I will be placing all the code. Okay, so now in order to put the code files inside here, okay, I will right click on it and then right here, reveal in Finder. This is what will show on the Mac version. Something very similar to this you will see in the Windows version, maybe find an open window or open file location. So you will click on this and it will open where it is saved, this folder that we have just added. So I can open it and copy all the files. Okay, I don't believe you guys have the final code, so you will only have the template and 3 images. So I will copy those over and close. So now you will notice they have been added to the Space Invaders folder. Okay, and now we will begin slowly going through all the different sections of the code. Now, in programming in general, we don't write all the code at one time and then run it, because in general we will probably encounter a lot of errors. Okay, and it will be very hard to go back and trace each one. So just like if we were to program this in a very professional way, I'm going to code it part by part, and we will run each part to make sure it is working properly. And if there are any errors, we will fix them before we move on to the next part after it. Okay, so initially we have the section for importing the different modules that we will use. And my colleague Mariam has discussed each one of those and the types of commands that we have available due to these modules. So we will write, or we already have them written, import turtle, import math, import random, so that we can use them in our code. Next, we want to generate the game window. Okay, because everything that we have, all the objects we have, are contained inside the game window. So to generate it, the command for that in turtle module is we give it a name for the window, for example, WN, short for window, and we write equal and turtle.screen, open and close parentheses. So this will generate a game window. Before I proceed any further, if you can confirm to me in chat if the text size is good enough or if I should increase it. So if you can just confirm the text size for the code. Can everyone see this clearly, or is it too small? Maybe I can increase it a little bit. Okay. Let's go to preferences, editor, font, and maybe 16. Okay. Okay. Proceeding forward, the next command for the window, we want to set the window's dimension. So we will use wn.set and open parentheses. So inside we can set two things, which are the width and the height. So the width we will set to 700 and the height to also 700. So we have a nice square window. Enter. Okay, next command, we want to set a background color for the window. So we will write BG color, open parenthesis, and we write the color that we want. So I will select black, so I will open double quote and lowercase, write black. Next, we want to give a title to the window. So I'll write wn.title and name it space invaders. This is what will show up at the top part of the window. Okay, which is in this image, this part right here. This is the title of the window. Okay, I will skip this part here. Okay, so initially, we're not going to be using any of the images. We will just symbolize everything, the player, the enemies with shapes. And then as a next step at the last part of the tutorial, I will be going over how if we want to implement these images, just to keep things very simple. Okay, so I will just skip this part and move to the drawing of the borders. Actually, before I do that, let's try to run the code and see if we will generate a game window or not. So if we just right click and we click run, we can run the code, okay? Or we can click the play button up here on the top right corner. Okay, so I will just right click and click run. We will see what will happen. We have an error, okay? So what does the error show? It says that we have indentation error on line 70. So let's go down to line 70. Okay. So for Python to run, all right, for a program to be executed, the whole code has to be free of errors. So we have syntax errors here because the functions, we have only started the definition of functions but have not put anything inside. So there is a keyword that we can use. It is like a cheat. So because we have not gotten to this part and we just want to run the code for testing, so we can use the keyword pass. So this will simply act as a placeholder currently because we have nothing inside the function. So we will just go down to each of the functions and just write pass. Okay. in order to let us run the program. Okay, and we will see what will happen. So all of my functions, I have written the keyword pass for them. So let's try to run it again and see what happens. Okay, we have now run it. However, as you can see, it is not with the expected window title, and it is appearing to be moving in an infinite loop. Why is that? Simply because we have not updated the window. There is a specific command that we have to use in Turtle in order to update the window between frames. So the way the program will be executed is as follows. It will first initialize everything, initialize the variables, all the function definitions, and then it will move to a while loop. So here this is an infinite while loop, meaning that will always execute the inside of the while loop. Okay, so it will go through all the commands inside that we will fill in shortly, and once it finishes from there, it will repeat from the top and do it again, whatever is inside the while loop. Okay, so I will write wn.update. Now the game window will be updated between every single game frame. So if we run right now, we will see that everything is as expected. We have a game window title, we have the background black, and everything is as expected. Yes, so if you have an error, then if we have indentation error for the functions, we will just simply add the keyword pass. Okay, and as for the while loop, we have placed the command wn.update to update our game window. So the past keywords are just placeholders. We will delete them once we get to actually writing what is inside each of the functions. Okay. I hope I'm not moving too fast. And if you have any errors or questions, do not hesitate to ask them in the chat. Great. Excellent. Okay. So now we will get to drawing the border. So inside the game window, if I rerun it again, okay, okay, we already have it running. Great. Inside the game window, we do not have any borders set for the game. So we want to draw them in order to, for example, allow only the player to move inside the borders that we draw for the game map or the game area. Okay. So this is what I will do now. I will create a new turtle and I will call it border pen. So this is what we will use to draw the border of the game map. So we will write border_pen as the name of the turtle, and we will set equal to turtle.turtle. So as you will be seeing that in general, whenever we start a new turtle or a turtle object, what we will do is we will first define the name for it. We will give it a name, then set equal and write turtle.turtle. And then following that, we will start defining all the attributes that we want to give for this pen. So for example, border_pen dot, and then we want to give it a speed or a speed of animation. And we will set it to 0, which means the fastest. Then we will give it border_pen dot. We want to give it a color. So I will select mine to be white. So again, we will open double quotes and write it lowercase, the word white. Next, we want to set a pen size for it. So we will say border underscore pen dot pen size, and I will set it to 3. Next, we will do border pen dot pen up. So as we actually launch or run the game, it's going to be much more evident what each of these means. So, but in general, when we have initially the pen first defined, okay, we need to tell it if we want it to be drawing the pen or leaving traces of where the pen will be moving or not. Okay, because we will be generating the pen object on the game window. And as we set its location to different places, it will be drawing traces. So we can stop that because we don't want it to make scribbles everywhere. Okay, so we will make it pen up initially. All right, now we will actually start drawing the border. Now that we've defined everything for the border pen, now I want to actually start drawing. So we want to move it to the lower left corner. So let's look at the overall output that we're expecting. So this is the border that we want to draw, the one in the white, okay? And to draw that, okay, we need to start from somewhere and end at that same position. So what I will do is the pen will be here initially. So I will move it to -300, okay, in X and -300. So this means we will be moving to this lower corner, okay, because the 0, 0 point or the origin and window of the turtle is the lower left here. So this is 0, 0. And of course, the x-axis is horizontally and the y is vertically, okay? So in order to reach this point, I will be at -300, -300. So let's do that. So we will say border underscore pen. So you will realize that it keeps recommending or completing the word for me. So I can autocomplete by clicking tab. Okay, this is a tip for programming faster. So border pen dot set position. I want to set the position to -300, 300, which is the lower left corner of the part that we want the player to be in. Okay. Next, I will make it pen down because now we want to actually start drawing. So now we will make it pen down. Okay. And we want to move the pen around the game map, right? So we want to move it, for example, to the right for some amount of distance. Then we want to turn it and move it up, and then turn it and move it to the left, and turn it and move it down. Okay, so this is what we will do using a for loop. So we will say for side in range 4, meaning that we want to move 4 times. Okay, we want to execute whatever is inside the for loop 4 times. Okay, we will say border pen dot forward, or short for we can write FD, and 600 pixels. Now that we have moved across, we want to turn to the left. So I will write LT, short for left. And how many degrees we want to turn? 90 degrees to the left. Okay. So this unit for forward is in pixel. Here we are talking about an angle, which we have set 90 degrees. So because we are executing it 4 times, so we will start from here, the lower left. We will go 600 pixels, then turn 90 degrees. Now we are facing up. We will move up also 600. Then we will turn 90 degrees. So now we will face the left. Then we will go 600 and so on. Turn to the bottom and go 600 to make a complete square. So I think we can run the command and let's see what happens. So as expected, we have a square that we can now use as the game area. Okay. we can notice that there is a small arrow here in the bottom, and that is actually the pen object that we have, the border pen turtle object. So how do I get rid of this? I don't want it to show. It's not nice to have it. It's not very symmetric, the window. So what I will do is I will write the command border pen dot hide turtle. So now it will hide the little arrow. And if we run it again, we will see that it executes and hides the arrow. Okay, next part. Here in the top left part, we have the score counter. We want to display to the player what their current score is. Okay. 1 second, let's check if everything is good so far. Okay, sure. The code in the while loop, I have nothing inside the while loop. All I have is wn.update, which is a command to update the game window. The rest is still not filled out. Okay. And this is the part, in case anyone has missed it, for drawing the border and setting up the game window. Okay, so let's get to the score part. So we need to define a variable where we'll be storing the score value. So I will call it score just for ease. And I will set its value to 0 initially, because the player has just yet launched the game. So the score will be 0. Now that I have the score variable, now I want to show it on the game window. Okay, so to do that, I will need to create a score pen turtle object. So I will write score pen equal turtle.turtle, similarly to the border pen. Okay, it's going to be very similar to the code that we will use to set up the score pen. So turtle.turtle, open close parenthesis. Okay. And now we want to set the score pen's animation speed. So dot speed 0. And we want to set the score pen's color. I will also make it white. And we want to make it score pen.pen up, so it does not leave traces while it's being moved from the initial location at the center of the game window to the corners or wherever we want to put it. Okay. And now we want to set its position. I want it obviously in the top left corner, just to match the target picture that we have here. So we want it in the top left. So score pen dot set position, and that position will be approximately 0 minus 250. If it doesn't look right on your screen, you can change the numbers a little bit to adjust it, but this is the value that I have found from testing. So we have set that. I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong values. Minus 290, 270. This is for the score pen. Okay. I saw a question about the command window.update. asking if it has the break statement, I guess, within it, but no. If, for example, we want to exit the game, okay, we have to give a separate break command inside the while. If we want to break out the while infinite while loop here, we have to write somewhere break. So we, for example, define a condition. If something happens, we can break out of the while loop in order to end the game. It is not included inside here. Okay. Okay, so how do we get the score pen to actually write text? So this is the part where we write. So we write score pen dot write, and we open parenthesis. And now there are things that we have to define. For example, what do we want to write? Okay, what's the string we want to write? There are other parameters that we also have to tell it. Okay, so first of all, we open the double quotation and we write what we want. So I will say score colon space. And now the score obviously needs to reflect the value of the score variable that we defined here. It is not a constant number, of course. So the way to do that is I will open and close curly braces like the following. And at the end of the second double quote, I'll write dot format and then open parentheses. So inside here, I will define what the variable is that will be printed between these two curly braces. So I will say score. Okay, so now it will write score colon space, and it will put whatever number is saved in the variable score at that moment. Okay. Then there are other things to define. I will not go into too much detail, but we have to write false, then again, comma, and then align for the alignment of the text. We will write left, and then the font that we want to use. So we will write font equal open parenthesis, and inside we will define the name of the font. So it depends on which ones are defined in the Python that you are using, but generally Arial will be there. So you can add that, comma, the size of the font, 24, for example, and we will set it to normal because we don't want bold or italic or something. It will just be normal. Okay, and again, we do not want the score pen to show, so we'll write score pen dot hide turtle at the end when it has printed the content. Okay, so we can, I believe at this point, run it and see what we have. So no errors, that's good. Let's look at the game window. And here we have the score at the top left corner. So again, the value for the position of when I'm printing the score here, I get those from testing, running the code and changing the values just to adjust it where it looks very nice. So you can again mess with those numbers. These are not, do not have to be exactly the same. Okay, I will move on to creating the player turtle. So now that we have the score and the window and the border of the game area drawn, now we want to actually create the player turtle. So I want to call him player. So player equal turtle dot capital turtle. So we have created an object called player. Now we want to define the different attributes. So we have player dot color. We can give him a color. For example, I will write cyan. We can give a player a shape. So I will give him a shape of triangle initially. Okay, and then at the end of at the last part of the workshop, I will be demonstrating how we can add the images that we have inside here, our project folder, and use them for the player and for the enemy objects. Okay, so we have the shape set to triangle. We set the animation speed for the player 0. We set the position of the player. We want it at the center bottom of the screen. So set position 0 minus 250. Okay. Now the player, initially when the player object is created, it will be facing, I believe, the right. And we want it to be facing upward. So what will we do? We will say player.set heading, and we will rotate it 90 degrees counterclockwise, because that is how the turtle module works. And we want to set now the actual player speed, the player movement speed. So I will say player underscore dx is what I want to call it, short for the player change in x, delta x. And I will set it to 20. Again, in case the player is moving too fast across your screen when you run the program, you can simply change this number, increase it or decrease it, depending on the case that you have, okay? Okay, I'm seeing that someone has an attribute error, and for string object, I believe it is probably for this part here. Okay, possibly. And you just have to make sure that you get the syntax very carefully and correctly, that you have double quotes around the string that you want to print, curly braces for where you want to put the value of the variable, dot format, and the name of the variable between two parentheses. If you still get errors, please feel free to ask again. We will help you, of course. Okay, let's run it. We have not seen what the player will look like, so let's run it. Okay, we have the player, but there is this weird line that has been drawn. And if you remember, we talked about how moving a turtle around on the game window, it will leave traces. So this is exactly what happened here. And we don't want this line to appear. So what will I do? Simply, as previously, before moving the player, what will I do? I will have to hide the turtle. So I mean, player.pen up, sorry, not hide. We want to raise the pen as to make sure that we don't leave any traces. Then we can move the player's position and change it as we wish, and it will not leave any traces. So let's run it again and see what happened. Okay, excellent. Now we do not have a trace left over when we moved the player. Okay, so I will go back to the code so you can see the command we added is here. Line 49, player.pen up. Okay, so again, we are now just setting the stage for the code. We are programming all the different turtle objects, and then we will add some of the logic for the game, which is, for example, we want to be able to control the player. We want to be able to shoot bullets from the player. We want to have enemies on the map. We want them. So we will work through all of the logic after we have established all the different player turtles, or all the different game turtles. Okay, now we talk about the bullet. So to create the bullet turtle, we will set bullet equal turtle dot capital turtle. And we start defining all the different attributes, such as the color, bullet dot color, and we give it, for example, color yellow. Bullet dot shape, we can give it a triangle shape. And we want the bullet size to be smaller than the player, of course. So we will set bullet dot shape size, and we'll use scale factor 0.5 in X and 0.5 in Y. Okay, so it will make it half the size of the player. We want to set the animation speed to 0, which is the fastest. And we want to raise the pen just as to not leave any traces. And we need to set the heading, so which is the direction that the bullet will be facing. So again, we want to rotate it 90 degrees because it initially starts facing the right, and we want it to face upward, so we will rotate it 90 degrees counterclockwise. And once everything is set, we want to set the bullet to hide. Because initially, the player has not launched any bullets, so the bullet should be hidden. We want to set the speed of the bullet. So you write bullet dot, sorry, we will define a variable for the speed of the bullet. So you write bullet dy for change in y, and we will set it to 20. And we also need to track the state of the bullet. So I will also have to create another variable. I will call it bullet underscore state. Again, variable names, we can set them to anything, but I am using these names just to make it simpler and easier to understand the code. Okay, so bullet state equal, and I will set initially the bullet to be ready. And once the player has launched the bullet, then we will set the state to fired, or the logic of the game will set it to fired as to not allow the player to just keep shooting many bullets in the game window, because in the game it only allows you to shoot one bullet at a time. Okay, I will run it just to make sure everything is running correctly. However, I do not believe we will see a difference on the game window. We just want to make sure that there are no errors, because the bullet has been hidden at the end of everything. Okay, so we can stop that and move on to the next part. Okay, now we want to create the enemies. So because we have, let's look at the final game window that we're trying to achieve. We have multiple enemies, correct? So instead of going and naming, for example, just like we did for player and for the bullet, we, for example, create a turtle for enemy 1, enemy 2, enemy 3. That is just redundant. And in programming, we try to simplify the code as much as we can. And in order to do that, we will be using a for loop in order to generate all of these 5 different enemies, okay? So this is the next part that we will be doing. So first of all, let's set all the variables that we need for the enemy. So initially we have an enemy speed. So I'll write enemy dx because they will be moving in the x direction. I'll put 4. And then I will set the number of enemies, enemy num for enemy number of enemies. I would like 5 enemies on the map, just to not make it overcrowded. But of course, you can change this number and make it whatever number you feel is appropriate. Now, I need to reference the enemy turtle objects that I'm going to be creating, because during the code, you know, I'm going to be, for example, in case one of the enemies has been shot or something, I will need to go back and reference it to make him hide turtle, so you will not be able to see anyone who you shoot. And there are other things that we will be needing to manipulate. So in order to save the reference to all the different turtles, enemy turtles, we'll make a list for them. So enemies equal, and we have square brackets. This means we have just created an empty list, and using a for loop, we're going to populate that list and add all the different enemy objects. So for, and we have initial, what we have, the variable that we will be iterating. So I will call it in range enemy num, or number of enemies, then colon. So now for every enemy, which I have called them I, okay, which we have in the range of 5. So we'll have 5 different times we'll execute this for loop. What do we want to do? We want to go to the enemies list dot append, which means add, and we will add a turtle. Okay, so now if we were to see the list, here it is empty. After the execution of the for loop 5 times, because we have range of 5, okay, enemy number is 5. So after this, we will have a list called enemies with 5 different turtles inside of it. And now for these turtles, there's nothing defined. We have no shape or color or anything. So now we want to define, we'll have another for loop to define all the attributes of each enemy. So we will say for enemy in the list called enemies, okay? We want to set, for example, the color. I will set it to red. The enemy shape, we will set to, we can put anything. I will put it circle. I don't mean anything, I mean any shape. So circle, triangle, square, these kinds of shapes. Okay, any predefined shape in the turtle module. So let me clarify something also as a, I guess, a pro tip in programming. So these commands for the turtle module, for any module that we're using when we're programming, of course, it'd be nice if we remember everything, but in case we forget, so at this point, I'm not sure which shapes exactly we can use. So I know that it is the attribute dot shape. So I can go to Google and just simply write, you would write Python turtle module, and you will have many options. So one of them is the official Python source, and you can look for exactly which one you are looking for, which command, which is shape. So this is the shape command, and we can see that these are the allowed shapes that we can use. So we have arrow, turtle, circle, square, triangle, classic, etc. So in programming, of course, as we use something or a command multiple times, we will remember it. But in case we forget anything, we can. There is no shame in going back to the documentation to get the correct syntax. Okay, we move on to speed of animation. I will set it to 0 for fastest, and 10 up before we set the location of the enemies. Now, the game would be quite boring if every single time we launch the game, the enemies are always placed in the same location. So in order to make it more appealing and more professional, let's say, so we want to generate random positions for the enemies at the start of each game, where we will have them at different locations every time. So in order to do that, we will use the random module where we import it from the beginning. If we scroll up, we have import random. They are grayed out and underlined, meaning that we have not used them yet in the code, but now that they will be changed to colors when we use them in this command. So we will write x equal random dot random integer. So random is the module that we are going to use, and random int is short for random integer. It is a method inside the random module that we would like to use. And we open brackets. So what does this method require from us? It requires a range of values. So we give it a start point and end point for the range, and it will select a random integer between these two boundary points. So I will give it -200 and 200 for x value, and for the y value, I will have random.random in. You will have between 100 and 250. Now that I've generated the position, I want to set that position to the enemy. So I will say enemy dot set position x comma, y. Okay, just to go over what we have done. So I have created a list, an empty list called enemies. Then I used a for loop to generate turtle modules, or to populate the list with turtle modules. So I have 5 turtle modules just ready to use and to define the attributes for them. Next, I go over every one of those elements inside the enemies list for each enemy inside the list, and I define all these different attributes such as the position, the speed of animation, color, shape, etc. Okay? And now at this point, if I run the program, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think I will see all the enemies on the map or no? Let's see what happens. I have defined their position and I have set their position. So, of course, they will show up, and I have set their color to red, so you can easily see that they are here. There are 2 that are overlapping here at this area. That is why it looks, but it should be 5 different enemies. So if we launch it again, let's see what happens. Will I get the same positions? No, the enemies will be generated in random positions between the bounds that I have set for the value in X and for the value in Y. I hope everything is clear so far. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat and we will assist you. Next point, before I get into the functions, okay, we need to understand that Turtle allows us to bind keys on our keyboards to do certain actions. Okay, so in order to do that, let's scroll down to keyboard bindings section. Okay, in mine it says line 129. Yours could be shifted a little up, down, doesn't matter. Okay, so the keyboard binding section. So here we need to activate the listening part of Turtle. So you'd say turtle.listen, and now it will be looking for keyboard inputs. Okay, so for our game, what do we have? Which keys will be using? We'll be using the left and right arrow keys and the spacebar. So to move our player, we'll be using the left and right arrow keys, and to shoot bullets, we will be using the spacebar. So to do that, we will say turtle.onKey, and we define a function that we want to execute when we have the key pressed. So we will say the function is called move right, okay, which we have defined up here, move right, comma, and we will write between double quotations the abbreviation for the key. So in the Turtle module, if we write capital R for the word right, like this, it will understand that we are looking for the right arrow key, okay? If we wanted to use another letter on the keyboard, we would just simply type that other letter. So we can, for example, use some gamers like to use WASD. So we can set, for example, to move right, we can set it to letter D. But I will keep it for the arrow keys in this tutorial. Now let's look at for the left, moving left function. So we'll say move underscore left. And similarly, we'll have capital L for left. And lastly, we want to link the keyboard spacebar to the fire bullet function. Again, the name of the functions is matching with the ones that we have defined up here. So if we change it here from move right to just right, that means we write only the word right as the function name. So it has to match the function name. Okay, fire bullet, we want the space bar lowercase s, like this. The Pycharm environment will try to find any possible causes for error and notify us about them. For example, if we look at onKey on my Pycharm, it is telling me cannot find reference in turtle.py. However, it does not mean the program will not execute and it will not work. It is just recommending that there is a possible problem here. But I believe this is okay for our case. So if I run this at this point, what do you think will happen? So we have keyboard listening enabled in Turtle, and we are listening. However, if I press the right and left and space, buttons, what do you think is going to happen? I am currently pressing them, and nothing is happening. So the reason, why is that? Of course, it is because we have not defined anything. We have linked them to the functions move right, move left, firebolt, but we have not defined anything for these functions to do. We have only used the key term pass, which means just exit the function. There is nothing inside to do. So this is the part where we define exactly when we want to move them or what we want each function to do. So we will say, we'll remove first, delete the pass key term, and we will write x equal player dot x core, short for x coordinate. Notice something, that x here is different than x here. This x that we have used in the outer scope was referring to enemy position. Here we want to talk about the player position, correct? So however, we are not going to face a problem, okay, because here x is defined in the global scale, and this x for the player x coordinate is defined in the local scale of this function called move right. So the x value here, we can only use it, or it's only going to be referenced inside the function only. Okay, so to move the player to the right, of course, we need to grab the current x coordinate of the player and add to it the player speed. How much do we have a speed? I think we set it to 20. Okay, so you'll write x plus equal, and we'll write player dx, which is the player speed. I will not write 20 directly because we want to be able to change it from one place later on, which is up here. So in case we change it here, it will directly reflect in any part of the code that uses the player speed. Okay? So we have taken the value, the current value of x value of the player. We added to it 20 pixels, or the player speed. Okay, this plus equal is an abbreviation for the following. It means exactly, like we said, x is equal to x plus player dx. This and this are exactly the same. However, just to make it simpler for the code, okay, we will use this abbreviation. Now, if we want to run the code, nothing will happen because we have just created a variable called x locally inside move right, and we set its value, but we have not actually set the value of the player. Okay, so we have to write player dot set x, and we write the new value of x, which we have just generated here inside. Okay, so now if we run it, what do you think will happen? If I press the right arrow key, you can notice that the player is slowly shifting to the right, correct? Every time I press it. However, if I keep pressing, there is no limit. I can go out of the game map. So this is a problem, and we don't want that. So in order to stop that, we will use an if statement. It will be as follows. We will say if x is less than 280, that means we are inside the bounds of the game map, colon, okay? We want to run the new player location. We want to move the player to the new location. Otherwise, don't move the player because we have reached the limit. Okay, this is a thing that we have to do. Now there's an indent expected, because if we want to define the inside part of the if statement, as you can notice in all of the Python programming, whatever is inside, for example, the for loop, the function, definition, the if, it has to be indented one time so that we can signify to the Pycharm that we are going to write a code inside the if statement, okay? So make sure you get the indentation correct throughout all parts of the code. Okay, let's do move left very quickly. It is very similar. However, can anyone think of what might be the difference between the function move right and move left? I will jump over to the chat. Yes, that is correct. The difference will be is we will be using minus equal, which means that we will subtract from the current x value of the player speed, which is 20 pixels. So it will move to the left. So player, thank you, correct. And of course, we also have to set a border limit. So we will set if x is greater than minus 280, that means we are clear and we are inside the game window. So player dot set x to the new value of x, which has been defined inside the function move left. Okay, so we'll grab this x value, not this one, not the one in the global scale. Okay, quickly run it and see what we have. So player moves to the right. We reach the limit, it stops. Even though I'm clicking on my keyboard, I cannot turn right. We go all the way to the left. And again, we are stopped at the limit. Excellent. I think we should skip the bullet part and jump into the actual part of getting the game to start becoming more interactive and seeing things moving in the game window. So let's jump down to the while loop. I hope everyone is able to copy down this part. Just I will leave it for a couple seconds in case someone has missed it. Okay, let's jump on to the main game loop that we will have. Okay. So there are more than one part here. We will do them one by one and check them. So first of all, we have a for loop to update the enemy position and to check if the enemy has collided, or a bullet has collided with the enemy, or something has happened to the enemies at each game frame. So we will say for enemy, because we have 5 of them in the list of turtles called enemies. Okay. We want to move it. So we take the position of the enemy, x coordinate of the enemy, and we add to it the enemy speed. So x plus equal enemy underscore dx. And then enemy dot set the x value to this x that we have here. Okay, so far so good. So now we will see that the enemies will keep moving to the right, okay, between each game frame. However, there is no limit for where they will go. They will just keep going to the right and they will go off the screen and beyond. And we don't want that. We want to stop them. And in fact, we want them to turn the other way and start moving to the left once one of the enemies reaches the right border. So in order to do that, we'll use an if statement. We will say if the enemy dot x coordinate is greater than 280, which is the right most bound, or enemy dot x coordinate is less than minus 280, which is the leftmost bound, colon. So if we are at either one of the maximums that we have, what do we want to do? We want to flip the enemy's x direction. So how do we flip it? Simply, we will take the enemy speed and we will multiply it by -1. Why is that? Because the enemy speed, what do we use the enemy speed for? We use it here when we are updating the position, correct? So imagine if instead of updating by, here we have x plus, for example, 20, it will say x plus minus 20. So it means it will move it to the left, correct? So this is why we use or we multiply by -1. Okay. Now that we have the first case, which is we have reached the endpoints. Okay, there are two cases. One where we have, maybe it's better if I run the code so you all see the final output in motion. So this is the game. After we have completed the whole code, this is what is expected. You can see the player in the bottom. Ignore the part that there are images. We will get to that. But you will see that we have the player moving. And look at the motion of the enemies. Once one of them reaches one of the boundaries, either the leftmost or the rightmost, all of the enemies will switch directions. So this is what we are trying to achieve in this part that we are coding currently. Okay, so how do we do that? So we have gotten to the part here where we have switched the direction, correct? Okay, and now what we want to do is we want to take all the enemies and shift them one, let's say, step down. So see, once one of them reaches the leftmost bound, what happens to their y? They all go down one, or they shift one level. Okay, and let's see it again one more time. Okay, they all shift one level. So let's define that. So we will use a for loop because we want to take all the enemies that we have and shift them in y. Okay. First of all, before we use an if statement, we need to take the value. So y equal e short for enemies. I'm not going to use enemy because this is a for loop inside the for loop that we have out here. So I will use e this time for enemy. So you'll say y equal e dot y core for the y coordinate. Once I have grabbed it, I will subtract from it some value. I will set it to 40. We can, of course, change that at any point to make it suitable for our program. Then we will set the y value to this new updated value that we have just set. Okay. And in this part, it means that we will have, let's run it. So this is the part that we've actually coded just now. So as you can see, once they reach one of the bounds, what happens? They all change direction in X and they shift one step down, correct? That is what we are seeing. Okay, and of course I can move the player. This is what we have achieved. If I press space, nothing is happening because we have not defined anything for that. So far so good, I think. I hope I'm not moving too fast. Okay. At this point, when we have just shifted all the enemies one level down, we want to check. What do we want to check? We want to check if they have reached the bottom of the game map. Why? Because we said that once the enemies reach all the way near the player, we want to say game over and end the game because the enemies have basically beat the player. So to do that, we will say if the y, which is the y coordinate of the enemy, okay? If y is less than or equal to minus 250, okay, this means that the condition is true and the player or the enemy has reached the player. What will we do? We will say player.hideTurtle because he is khalas. The enemies have reached them, so we want to hide him. Then we also take the enemy and we hide him. Okay, and remember we said that we have a bullet state. I will set it equal to off because we do not want the player to be able to input anything. Okay, he's not able to control the player or shoot any bullets anymore. Okay, and then we have the score pen. We want to set position to 0, 0, which is the center of the game window. And we want to write the message using the score pen that says game over. So we will say score pen dot write, and between double quotations, we will write game over. And as a side thing, we can also we can print the score so he can see the final score that he has gotten. So we can say dash or slash n like this, which basically means a new line. So you'll write it right under the words game over, and we will say score colon, and the same thing like previously when we printed, we will use curly braces, then dot format, and we can place everything inside the format. So I'm not gonna write it all out. We can just go up, copy it from the message we used for writing the score. Here we have all of these things. We can just copy them right after dot format. I'm taking everything. Let's scroll back down. Here, score pen dot write. Okay, and we will paste all of this. Okay, the alignment, we want it to be in the center. So we will change it to center. Font size, we can keep it as is. We can change it, make it a little bit bigger. It doesn't really matter. Okay, but in general, this is the printed or the message that we want to print in case the game is over. I hope to fit everything in the same line so you can see it. Okay, and now the game is, you can say, more than 80% complete. Okay, we are able to move the player, the enemies are moving, and there are conditions to end the game where we have game over. We are printing the score. Okay, we are almost there. A couple of things that are missing. You have probably picked up on that. Of course, bullets. We are not able to shoot any bullets currently. Okay, so this is the part that we'll be looking at next. So let's scroll up. And we have functions ready for us to fill up, okay, in order to control the bullet behavior. So we have a function called fire bullet. Recall, this function is triggered when we press the space bar, okay, which we have used this command here to link the space bar with the function called fire bullet. So what do we want to do here? We have a variable that we have declared previously called bullet state, and we want to use it. We want to use it inside this function. So if I just wrote, for example, here in the if statement, we want to check the state of it. So you say if bullet state, okay, is equal to fired, if it has already been fired. Or sorry, if it is ready initially. If it is ready, then we should be able to fire it. We are getting an error. Of course, double equal sign. I think my friend has already explained the difference. So when we use double equal, it means that we are going to compare values. And usually you will see double equal inside the condition for an if statement. When we use one equal sign, like up here for the move left function, we are assigning the value to x. So this value here that we pull up will be assigned to the variable called x. Versus here, we are checking, is bullet state, this variable, is it equal to ready currently, or what is the state currently? So we use double equal sign. Okay. Of course, we have to delete the pass keyword, and we will see that there will be an error. Anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and write before I run it and get the error, that we have to define bullet state as a global variable because it does not know what it means currently. In this scope, inside the function scope here, for the fire bullet, there is nothing defined for bullet state. So we have to tell it to grab the bullet state value from the global scale, like that. Okay, so if the bullet was ready, okay, so now we want to fire it. So we will set, okay, first of all, the bullet state will be turned to fired. Okay, so the player cannot shoot anymore. And we want to actually shoot the bullet. So how will we do that? We will say x equal player dot x coordinate and y equal player dot y coordinates plus 10. So what are we doing here? Okay, I am taking the bullet wherever it is last it was placed on the map. I will take it, I will place it right at the tip of the player that we have generated. So in this example, for example, if the player is right here, the bullet will be placed right here. Okay, so whenever we press space, the program is supposed to understand that, okay, I will place the bullet or shoot it from where the player is located, not like at some other random location. No, it will shoot vertically upward from where the player is currently standing. So this is why we grab the coordinates of the player. And we set the position of the bullet. So bullet dot set position, x, y. Are these two values. And of course, we, if you remember, we had the turtle hidden for the bullet. So now we will show it because it is being fired and we want the player to be able to see that. Okay. So at this point, I believe we'll be able to fire the bullet, okay, when we run the program. will we face any problems? Let us see. I press space, and this is what happened. The bullet, as you can see, has been fired, but does not actually move. Of course, it will not move because we have nothing inside the game loop here that defines the movement for the bullets, correct? So this is what we will be looking for in next. Okay, so let us scroll down. I am in the main game loop here, okay? And I'm scrolling down to, I will skip this part because this is talking about the collision. We just want to update the movement. So this is the last part of the whole while loop, okay? I will just go ahead and fill this if statement. I will say if, and notice where I place the if, okay? It has to be indented twice because it is part of the for loop, correct? It is part of the for loop. I'm sorry, no, it is outside the for loop. Yes, it's outside the for loop because we want to do it independent of the enemy movement. This is irrelevant to that. The bullet movement is separate from the enemy movement. Yes, so we will say if bullet state double equal, open double quote, fired. I'm asking the code, has the bullet been fired? Okay, I'm asking the game if it has. If so, the state is fired. That means we want to update the position of the bullet to move upward, correct? So we will take the bullet y coordinate. So we'll say bullet dot y coordinate, and we will save its value to the variable y, okay, the local variable called y. And we want to add to it the bullet speed. So bullet dy, the bullet speed. And of course, we have to set this new y location. Now, in every single iteration of this while loop, okay, we will see that the bullet will slowly be moving upward. How much upward? By this value that we set here, okay, bullet dy, which is the bullet speed. So I can scroll up to where we define the bullet here. Bullet dy is 20. That is how many pixels it will shift upward. Okay. Now then, if I run it now, we're going to see if I press the space bar, see what happens. We have a bullet traveling upward. However, it is going upward to infinity and will never stop. And as well, I am not able to fire any other bullets because we have a condition that says the bullet state is currently fired. And in that case, I cannot, if we go back to the code, we will see. When I press space, this function is executed and it checks, is bullet state ready? It's never going to be ready. Why? Because it has been set to fire because I pressed it the first time, correct? So in this case, I will only be able to fire one bullet and that's it. And this is not the objective of the game. So how will we be able to amend that or fix it? So we will say, okay, so I have a condition. If my bullet y coordinate was greater than 275, which means it is out of the game screen, what do we want to do? We want to, okay, now we are ready to hide the turtle and we are going to change the bullet state to be ready again. Okay, so the player is able to fire another bullet and try to hit the enemies again. So let's give it another shot. So I will fire the bullet. See, it goes all the way up and then it hides once it is out of the game screen. I can press space again and it will fire another bullet. I hope so far so good. Let us switch over to the chat to make sure everything is going well. Okay. Last part. Last part, we want to check collision with the bullet between it and the enemy. So we have a function we have yet to define. It's called isCollision. And we have, of course, the last if statement here inside the game loop. So with this, we will be, of course, concluding the game and finishing it. So let's do that. So to check the collision between two different turtles, I will create, or we will be creating a function called isCollision. And we will input into that function two different variables. These variables, I will call them T1, T2, standing for turtle1, turtle2. So we can check at any point during the code if two different turtles are colliding by using this function, okay, by calling it. So let's define it. So what happens? What do we want to do with these two turtles? Simply, we want to check the distance between them. If the distance is very short between them, it means they have collided and they are overlapping. So in this case, we want to return true for this function. So this is how we will write it. We will write a distance equation using the math module. So the distance equation, this is something from high school math. So we take between two different, let's say, points on an XY plane. If we want to find the distance, how do we do that? So we take the square root of x1 minus x2 squared plus, I'm not going to go into details, but you get it, y1 minus y2 squared, all of that under the square root. Okay, this is the distance equation. So I will now need to program that into Python. So to do that, I will use math.square root for the square root, and I will use math.pow for powers. Okay, so math.square root, open bracket, math.power, t1.xcore. I know it is a little long. Actually, if you can copy it, that is great. But I think I will also post it in the chat. Okay. t1.y coordinate minus turtle2.y coordinate and squared. Okay. So this is the distance equation. Okay, I will now share it in the chat in case it is taking too long to input. If someone's having trouble seeing the code, I'll switch back to it. But in general, I'm sharing my screen, so it should be visible for everyone. I don't know, sometimes depending on the internet, it might not show you at the current moment. Just give it a few moments, it should show up again. Okay. So this is how we will say. We'll just say distance equal, and we will just paste the equation that I have just put in chat. I have put the full line. So we'll just paste this one here. Okay. Now we want to check the distance. If it's less than 15, that means the objects are overlapping. We will say return true. Else, colon, return false. This means that if the distance is less than 15, they are colliding. This function isCollision is going to return true. Otherwise, it will return false. So you will see exactly where this will come in very handy, yani, in the next part that we will code. Okay. And again, 15 is a number that from testing has become evident that it is the correct number. You can add to it decrease and test. You might see that before actually the enemy and the bullet collide together, you will see that it will count it as a collision. The enemy will disappear and it will increase the score. Or you will see that maybe if you put the distance too short, it's never going to hit the enemy. Even if the bullet passes through the enemy, it will never hit it. Okay, so this is a value from experimentation. Okay. Now that we have defined this function, let's look at the main part, or the part in the main game loop that is related to this part of bullet enemy collision. So we have a condition. If. What do we want to check? We want to check if there is collision. We call this function that we have just defined. Between which two turtles are we checking for? We are checking for the bullet and the enemy. So we check is collision bullet enemy, and this part, this call to the function, will either return true or false based on the definition that we have previously defined right here. Okay, so if it returned true, then we will, of course, do what we have to do in order to count or increase the score of the player because the enemy has been hit. Otherwise, it will just dismiss and not do anything because the bullet has totally missed all enemies on the game map. Okay, so quickly we will draft the following command. We will say bullet.hide turtle. Okay, in case we have a collision, we want to hide the turtle, and we want to set the bullet state to ready. And now, since we have hit the enemy, we want to generate a new enemy in its place. Okay, because we want the game to keep going. We don't want it just to have the player shoot all 5 enemies and then that's it, game over. We want him to keep always having enemies being generated on the map. So this is what we will do. We will say x equal random.rand int. Okay, similarly to previously, actually, I will write it very quickly, but you can copy it from the part that we have written previously. Okay, it's the same thing. We generate an x and y, a random x and y position for the enemies, and then we say set position x, y for the enemy. Okay. Then we want to update the score because we have shot one of the enemies. So we will say score plus equal 10. So you can make it any increment you want. You can make it increment by 50s, by 100, whatever you feel is suitable. I will just say 10. You get 10 points for shooting every enemy. Okay. Now that we updated the value of the variable called the score, that does not mean that that is the value that will be printed on the game window. So we have to update the value that is written on the game window. So what will I do? I will first erase everything that we have written previously using the score pen. Okay, so score pen.clear, right? And then I will write again the new score that we have generated. So in order to do that, it is the score pen.write command. And instead of me writing it again, it is exactly the same as the one that we used when we initially wrote the score. So let's scroll up to line, I will tell you which line, line 41. So here you can see we have written the score reflecting the variable score here, and the font and everything has been set. So we want it to be written like that. So let's scroll back down, and here, write a new score. We will paste the same command. Okay. And with that, we can run the game, and everything should be running as expected. So let us run it. So I can see that I have enemies being generated. They are moving. I am able to control the player. I can shoot bullets. In case the bullet touches an enemy, the enemy will disappear, a new one will be generated, and I will get a new score. I can see it says 20 because there is a condition that is causing the bullet to still be touching the enemies. Okay, so what can I do to fix this? Because the bullet right now, it is currently hidden, right? But it could be in a place where these enemies are touching, as you can see, and we can't have that. This is reflecting an incorrect score. So there's a command that we are missing somewhere in the code, okay, and that is that once we have a collision, what do we want the bullet to do? We want it to hide, but we want it to steer away from the game screen. Okay, we want to set the position somewhere off the screen. So maybe bullet dot set position. I don't know, where did we set it initially? Let's see, so I don't make up anything new. Let's just set the position. One second. Okay, let's just set the position to be where the player currently is, or for simplicity, just at the player position in Y, for example, and 0 in X. So where is the player initially at in Y? Player 0 minus 250. Great. So now in this case, it will not be able to interfere with our game. Okay. Let's just, somebody requested this part, so I will leave it. This is the if statement at the end of the main game loop that is responsible for updating the bullet position. And the one for the bullet out of the game screen, here, I will just scroll. The font is a bit big, so I will just close this part. Hopefully you can see everything. Okay, this is the part to check if the bullet is out of the game. Okay, let us run it again and see what we have. So will anything weird happen now? So once the bullet has been shot, now if anything goes through to this point, okay, nothing will happen. If any enemies go through this point, it will not increase the score because obviously the bullet is hidden and it shouldn't be in the play field, okay? So now as you can see, the enemies are just shifting normally, and if we shoot again, okay, the bullet should be repositioned right here, but it's currently hidden. It should be repositioned right here, okay? And as you can see, it is counting the score. And I will also demonstrate, I'm pressing space currently. I cannot shoot multiple bullets, but once the bullet is out of the game screen, I am able to again shoot another bullet. Let us see the game over case. Okay, the game over case obviously has a bit of an error. Okay, so let's see what we have done wrong. Okay, before I see what the problem is with the game over message, someone has asked the question, why do we set the bullet position to, or reset the bullet position after it has collided with the enemy? So the reason for this is because if we do not do that, the bullet will be inside the game area. Okay, the bullet, for example, if it came and collided with this enemy, and then it's going to be here, and we do not want it to give false scores and increase the score because it thinks that other enemies are touching the bullet as well. So you reset the position, okay, of the bullet as to not have that problem happen. Okay, remember that the bullet state changes to ready, and so the next part of the game loop, when it comes here, it is not equal to fired, so it will not move the Y. So the bullet will not just keep, if it hits an enemy, it will not keep going up. It will just stay there. So we have to reset it so it is not in the game field and make it at the exact center here and minus, I believe, 250 NY. Okay. All right, let me just see what the problem is with the game over part. Okay, so when we came and we checked if the enemy is at the bottom of the map, great, excellent. Hide the player turtle. Okay, hide the enemy, bullet is off. Okay, we set the position of the score pen to be the exact center of the screen. And here, what do we have? This is font. All the brackets seem okay. Ah, okay. I did dot format. I have not defined which variable it will print here, so it's a silly mistake. Maybe some of you have already caught up on that. Apologize. So you just, between the brackets, after the word format, you will write score because we want to associate the variable score with the space here between the two curly braces. Okay, so now, fingers crossed, everything should be as expected. Okay, so we are going to increase the score. And I will answer some of your questions while we wait for the enemies to reach the bottom of the map. So let's look at a question. Yes, if there is an error in the code that will cause the turtle module to crash, then yes, it is possible for Pycharm to crash with you as well. But generally, this might be due to, for example, forgetting to add a window.update, or it could be many reasons. So just make sure that all parts of the code are correctly filled in. Okay. Let's see what's happening here. We have the score printed correctly, but we have something weird going on. It is printed more than one thing in the center, and we have the enemy still visible, and we don't want that. So maybe some suggestions that we can follow and proceed with next. So of course, we want to, first of all, go and see that part of the code. Okay, so score pen dot set position, and game over. I believe we have to reset the score pen, or clear it rather. In order to make sure it doesn't print more than once. Because this is not the output that, of course, we are trying to seek. It is printing score 60. Okay. This part, the score 60 here, is associated with the part that was previously being printed in the top left corner, correct? So we need to see where that part is, the part that prints this, and we have to cancel it. Okay, so where is that? The score pen dot write. To find it, let's give you a tip. So if I press on Mac, Command F, on Windows, similarly Control F, I believe, we can search through the code and see if we have any matches for the terms we put in. So we can write score pen.write. So where have we used this command? We have used it here for game over. We have used it here to update the score. And we have used it here at the way top part of the code where we initially introduced the score pen. Okay, this part is only executed once. However, these two, because they are inside the while loop, they will be executed more than once. So I need to make sure that we don't have any collisions when we have game over. So how do I do that? Simple. The position that I set 0 minus 250. I can set it to, for example, instead of being here, and that was the problem because the enemies would come down and they would pass over this area. Okay, so we cannot have something here. So we have to, for example, maybe set the bullet position maybe up here when it is not in use. Okay, when it is out of the game, we can set it maybe here. We can set it to idle here, somewhere. Okay. But I believe that if we hide the turtle, it shouldn't matter, but for some reason it is giving us a problem. Because we are saying bullet.hide turtle. So it shouldn't be able to collide with anything else, but let's just say it is equal to 0,350. So that is definitely here somewhere. And no enemies will be touching that area. So now if we run, of course, stop and rerun again. Okay, let's try to shoot down a couple of enemies and wait for them to go all the way down. Of course, instead of waiting for the enemies to go all the way down, we can just reprogram the ranges of Y values that the enemies can have and make it much lower as to be closer to the player, and we can do the test much quicker, but I will leave it and answer some of your questions. Yes, let me go back to that part. Actually, let's see. Okay, we have a bit time to look at that. Here we have resetting the enemy positions. This is the line I believe that you are referring to. Okay, let's see what happens now. Okay, the enemy is obviously out of the game map, and we have the score. However, we can see the enemies. We can make it that we have all the different enemies hide, or we can just leave that, no problem, and they'll just keep going down slowly until they get out of the game screen. Either way, it's a preference. Both methods will be fine. It is printing the score once. So this is excellent, and the output is just as expected. I hope everything is making sense. I tried to make sure my speed wasn't too fast and to explain everything thoroughly. Okay. I don't know if we have time to add the background and the different images for the player and the enemies. It shouldn't take too long, but if you have questions, of course, it is more important that we make sure everyone's on the same page. Let me go back to the code in case anyone would like to copy. I will just X out of the search and find function. So this is the main game loop that we programmed at the last stage. Okay, for us to add the images that we have here inside the project folder, it will be very easy. It is not hard, and it will make our game look much nicer. Okay, it will make our game much more appealing for the user. So How do we do that? Let's scroll all the way up. It is very simple, and we will just be adding a couple of lines specifically where we talk about the window. Here, you remember we skipped this commented line here, okay, where we have to register the images. So first of all, let's talk about the background, the window background. Okay, to do that, we will just say WN, short for window, dot BGPic, which means background picture. Open parenthesis and double quotation, and we write the name of the file for the background. So we have called it here space underground background. So I will write it exactly like it is with the same cases for the letters. .gif, okay, and the same file extension. And might I note as well, if you are to add a file, okay, for example, for background image, for any image file, you will need to have it inside the same folder with the code, so the same project folder for Python to understand. Otherwise, if you have it somewhere, for example, the image is saved on the desktop or something, you will have to write the whole, let's say, URL, okay? So starting from, the computer, then the user, then going through desktop, and etc. Okay, so for it to just be able to understand directly by only inputting the name of the file, it has to be inside the same folder as the code. Okay, now we want to register the images. So we will say turtle.register shape. We want to register the images for the enemy and for the player as shapes so that we can input them directly. Instead of the shapes that we have for the player as a triangle and circles for the enemies, we want to have images as those shapes. So we will say register shape, okay, and between two double quotes, we will write the name of the file, so enemy.gif. And similarly for the player, register underscore shape, player.gif. Okay, so these are the three commands that we have just added. Again, it is giving me an error for reference, but again, this is not to mean that the code will not run. It is just a recommended step or something for us to look at that Pycharm is trying to tell us. Okay, these are there. Once these are written, we make sure the same cases, everything, great. If we run it, we will get the background. We will not get the enemy and player images because we have not set them yet. So let's scroll down to the definition of the player. Here we have the shape equal to triangle, right? We want to take that, delete it, and write player.gif because we have just defined this new shape. Okay. So we take player.shape and we change triangle to player.gif. Okay, we continue scrolling down. We have an image for the enemy. So we have enemy.shape instead of circle. We will delete that and we will write enemy.gif. Is that all? Yes, that is all we need to do to make our game very appealing for the user. So as you can see, now we have all the images in place. Everything looks very nice. We are able to shoot the bullets. If I can hit one of the enemies, you will see that the score will also be counting. And I believe we have fully completed the game at this point. So of course, if you have any questions, I and my colleagues will gladly answer.
Okay, thank you, Engineer Mahdi, for this informative session. It was a great learning experience to develop an arcade game using Python. We hope you all had a great learning experience. You learned a lot, understand Python, and we hope we see you in our other workshops in the future. For now, if anyone has a feel free to type them in the chat. And in the meanwhile, I will share with you the link for the certificate of attendance. Please fill it out. And for the recording, as many of you are asking for it, we will shortly, inshallah, upload it on these platforms. I will share the link with you all. We have a YouTube channel, and you can find it also with the PowerPoint, my PowerPoint, in the event page, the same page you registered for this event. And thank you all for being here. Don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts or platforms. I'm sharing now in the chat. And thank you for attending the session, and thank you for sticking around till 10:20 p.m. And yeah, thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to share it with us so we can learn and everyone here can learn with us more. Someone is asking, Shahad is asking, is there a form for attendance? Yes, I shared with you a link. I will share it again for the certificate of attendance for attending this session. I shared it now in the chat. And if anyone has any question, please feel free. We're here to answer all of your questions, and we're happy to answer them. You're most welcome, Shahad. Saad is asking how to hide the enemies after game over. So, Engineer Mahdi, can you please?
Of course. So if you wanted to hide all the enemies during the game over part, so we go to the section. Should I share screen again? 1 second.
Yes.
Okay. I believe the screen is being shared. So we go to the part of the code where we are printing game over. Okay. So in this part, we can just simply input a simple for loop to just simply hide all the enemies. So we could just say for the, okay, let's first of all analyze it. We have if, then we have for e in enemies, then we have this condition. We will not loop through all of them, so we could just add one here. So for e and short for enemy and enemies. There are, of course, many ways in programming for solving any programming problem. Okay, but I will try this one. I will just simply hide each turtle, okay, in the enemies list. I will give it a shot again. I will rerun the code and we will see what happens. Okay, also to make it easier for us in analysis, I mentioned we can lower the y-axis of where all of them are being spawned, the enemies. So here we have y between 100 and 250. We can just make it between, for example, 0 and minus 200. Okay, so now the enemies will initially spawn at a much lower point. I'm sorry, maybe it is too low. Okay, never mind. The left one has to be the lowermost, and the right one has to be the uppermost. So obviously minus 100 or minus 200 is much smaller than 0. Okay, so this is how we have to write it. Okay. Now that everything is generated, we see the enemies are randomly selected positions, but much lower and closer to the player. So let's see what happens when we have a game over case. Okay, once the game has been finished, or the player or the enemies have reached all the way till the bottom of the map, all of them have been hidden through one shot. Okay, so I will just go back to the part that I added here. I just added a simple for loop and to hide all the enemies. I hope that answers your question.
If anyone has any question, please feel free to ask us. We're here. We can answer all your. If you're having any issues, difficulties, and yeah, I want to mention a quick note that we will share with you if you provide for us your emails. And by filling out the link of certificate of attendance, we will share with you all the resources and the full program written already with the all, so you can match what you've done and answer key for this program. And yeah, so please feel free to ask your question. Please fill out the certificate of attendance link so we can reach you with the resources and provide it all for you.
Thanks, Mahdi, for the tutorial. It was really great. First time seeing a building game. Yeah, it was really awesome.
Thank
Yeah,
you. I hope
agree.
everyone benefited greatly from it, and from, of course, the initial part with Mariam explaining the basics of programming and Python. This is a good. It has a good foundation for in case you want to pursue this further. Maybe look at some other sample projects, other sample arcade games that you can build on your own.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So if anyone has any question, I will try to open the mic for everyone attending this session. Okay, and if to 5 bits, it's too long. Let me try. It doesn't work. Don't know why. Anyhow, thank you for attending. Don't forget to register in our future upcoming events. We will have Python basics for those who are interested to develop enhance their skills in programming using Python. We hope you all had blessed, and yeah, thank you again. See you soon in our future events. There is one last question, Engineer Mahdi. It's by Saad. Asking, can there be preset blocks in between the game to make it harder for shooting the enemies? So can you answer that?
Yes, of course. There are endless possibilities. You can do whatever you can imagine in the game. So if you wanted to add, for example, blocks, one approach that I would use, for example, is to add turtles. So you can add turtle for each block that you want to add as a barrier, acting as a barrier for the shooting of the enemies. So yeah, you can add these different turtles, and you can set conditions for them where the bullet would not be able to penetrate through them, for example, and so on. Or, for example, you can set conditions for the enemy so they are not able to move past them, and etc. There are limitless opportunities that you can implement.
Any other question? Please feel free to ask. There is another question by Saad also, but it is possible that the enemies will collide with the blocks.
Yeah, so you can define the conditions that you would like in order inside the main game loop as to control how the enemies will react to, for example, the bullets, the different blocks that you have placed on the map, etc. To have them, for example, if you wanted them to collide and bounce off, you can define that. You can even go into further and make the each enemy's motion different and not dependent on all the others. As you've seen in the game, we have all of the enemies linked up in the same motion. So once one of them touches left or right bounce, all of them will shift down. You can make the movement of each enemy totally independent of the others. So this all comes back down to the game design that you are trying to achieve.
Khadija here is asking, how many actions can we write for each if statement?
Yes, I believe I've answered it in chat, but I will answer it again verbally. So in the if statement, there is no limit to how many commands we can write inside of it. Okay. However, for basic programming cases, of course, if you are to write a very long code, it might make the computer, slow, and you'll need a high performance computer. But in general, basic programming cases, we can write as many if statements, as many commands as we want inside the if statement with no real consequences.
Okay, another question by Saad. So multiple enemies can be set by multiple loops as well?
Yes, of course. So really depends on the game design that you are trying to achieve. And of course, the sample code that I have done with you guys today in the workshop is a possible way of programming the game. Maybe if you put this same game in someone else's, another programmer's hand, they would code it a little bit differently than how I did it. So it all comes down to how you want to design it and how many loops you want to use, and if you want to have nested loops or however you want to do it. Of course, the best and most ideal situation would be to have the simplest code, so the least number of lines of code doing the same exact function.
Any other question? So I think we don't have any more questions. Thank you again for attending. We are so happy to have you here, and inshallah we'll see you in our upcoming events. Thank you so much. Don't forget to fill the Google Google form for the certificate of attendance, and also so we can send you the resources for this session, this workshop. We can send you the key and the template, the pictures and everything, and the PowerPoint also. So please fill the form, and thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.